My dear brothers and sisters, the love and blessings of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo to all of you from Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi branch. The topic of today's discussion is integral wellness, the what, why, and how of it. Now, suppose I were to ask you, of course, not nice to start the session with a question, but once in a while one can break rules. What is common to all those people who live a very long life, 80, 90, sometimes even 100? What is it that is common to all of them? Yes? Lifestyle is a comprehensive term, global term. Which aspects of lifestyle do you think are common to all of them? Yes, Sumit? Health, yes, they are healthy, but then why are they healthy? Health is an aspect of wellness, and health, they are healthy and therefore they have lived long. But what is it that they do which has kept them healthy and made them live that long? Balance between work and? Okay, balance between different aspects of life. They are early risers. They are physically active. And Ruchi here said they are happy.
I think they're emotionally resilient. They know how to regulate their stress.
They have emotional resilience. They have a desire to live or a will to live. They have achieved some sort of a harmony between body, mind, and soul. They have internal happiness, which means they are truly happy. They are not just they don't just appear to be happy. They have an happiness which is within, which is unshakable, stable. They are joyful. They are at peace. Okay. Now, I'm very happy that with all these answers, because if the same question had been asked, say, 20 or 30 years ago, probably the top answers would have been what they eat, whether they are physically active. But today, you might have seen that there was a predominance of responses related to the mind. They are happy, they are at peace, and they have inner happiness. And also, related to spirituality, they have harmony between body, mind, and spirit. Now, this is something which we have learnt during the last 20 years or so, and it has been talked about so much that it has become more or less common knowledge, which is very good. Because in fact, if you look at these people who live very long, there's nothing really common when it comes to physical factors like diet and exercise. In general, they would be careful about what they are eating, but then even those who are careful about what they eat, if the person happens to be living in the north of India, he may be eating dal roti, and if he lives in the south, he'll be eating rice and sambar, and if he's living in the Mediterranean country, he would be eating olive oil. And in Kerala, he would be eating coconut oil. Now, these are all different types of diets, and that is about those who are careful about what they eat. Many of them would be, in fact, even those who live to 80, 90 or 100, many of them are totally careless about what they eat. And the same applies to exercise. In general, they would be physically active, but some of them may be doing yogic postures, some of them may be jogging, some may be swimming, and some may be just taking a half an hour walk every day. And some may be completely sedentary. Some may be early risers, as one of you said, but some may be going to bed late and getting up late. And still they live that long. Now, what is common to all of them? We shall once again return to this question at the end. But you might have already guessed, and I'm happy that some of the answers that you have given already give hints of that, like, say, the harmony between the body, mind, and spirit. But one thing which is common to most of your answers, and what I have also hinted at by saying that it's not the physical factors that they have in common, is that there's something related to the mind that is in common, and at the mental level, they are happy, they are at peace. That is what is common to all of them. Now you see, if the psychological factors are that important in relation to health, then okay, I have understood it. From tomorrow onwards, I will be happy. I will not worry about anything. Now that actually doesn't work. Like these are resolutions. But then like New Year resolutions, very difficult to keep them. And why that happens is easy to understand, because we are basically trying to use the powers of the mind. And the mind ordinarily is not very dependable when it comes to our determination to be happy. Why? Because the mind has two aspects, feeling and thinking. The emotional part of the being is typically volatile, a little bit, and can be provoked to anger. It's also very greedy, insatiable, unstable, sometimes wants this, sometimes wants that, and no matter how much it gets, it wants more, and there's no end to the desires which we think will make us happy, and therefore, because of that, if we depend upon the emotional part of the being, we cannot really be happy because of its vacillating, unstable and insatiable character. We think that the intellect will perhaps be a little better, but then intellect is also something that is vacillating. It can justify doing something, it can justify not doing something, and it also has a tendency to worry. It's because of our very well developed intellect that we worry, and perhaps we are the only creature who worry. At least we are the creature that worries more than any other animal. And why that is so? Because we keep thinking about what will happen in old age when I retire. Will I be able to settle down in peace? Will my children take care of me? And if all seems to be well, then we start worrying about whether my grandchild will get admitted to a good school. And if all seems to be well, then we start worrying about whether the 7th generation after me will also be happy. So there's no end to worrying. That is the character of the intellect. So then you'll say that, well, I have understood, and the mind will not be able to help me, neither the emotions nor the intellect, so I'll meditate. Very fashionable. Now I'll here read out something, and I will not expand on it, from a book by a current spiritual teacher, Om Swami. The book is The Book of Kindness. And why I'm doing this is because if I put it that emphatically, you will not like it. But I can use somebody else's authority to read it out. And what does he say here? On page 115. I can meditate till the skies crash. I can chant till the earth splits open. I can go through all the affirmations in the world and read all the self-help books or practice every form of yoga, but none of these can guarantee lasting happiness. So that much about, I'll meditate and all will be well. Now if all that is so, then how can we do it? Where should we turn for that elusive thing called happiness, which in any case is a part of dualities and therefore comes coupled with sorrow? What is not coupled like that is peace. So where do I turn for lasting mental peace? Now the limitations of the mind, Sri Aurobindo in Savitri has put very well that if mind is all, forget about bliss. Which means there's something more to us than the mind. The mind, as we saw, be it the emotional part of the being or the intellect, they are very inadequate for giving us that peace. So if mind is all, forget about bliss, which means that the mind then needs an anchor which knows much more than the mind does, which is higher than the mind. And that anchor is the soul. That is because the mind basically is an imperfect instrument, and its biggest limitation, you might say, is ignorance. Not total ignorance, but very partial knowledge. Knowledge which is very little compared to what all may be known, very little compared to the total truth. So the next line after this in Sri Aurobindo Savitri, that if mind is all, forget about bliss. The next line is, if mind is all, forget about truth. Which means the mind itself cannot give us the total truth. And what is the limitation of a partial knowledge or ignorance? Incomplete knowledge. Now, incomplete knowledge is bad. What is even worse is that as a result of ignorance, we also have distorted knowledge, which can be very erroneous. For example, you may not know much about me, and therefore your knowledge is partial. Well, fine. Somebody knows this bit, somebody knows that bit, somebody knows that bit. So partial knowledge. That is not very harmful. What is harmful or what is dangerous? That's why they say half knowledge is dangerous. What is dangerous is that your view may be distorted. What it may be distorted by is what I talk in the meditation hall. इतनी बड़ी बड़ी बातें करता है, बहुत अच्छा आदमी होगा. So that is a distorted view. इतना अच्छा नहीं हूँ. So that is, you see, what the problem arises from the incomplete knowledge. It is not only partial knowledge, it is also distorted views that we get. And that is the limitation of partial knowledge. Say, in terms of, say, different systems of medicine. You have faith in one system of medicine, your friend has faith in another system of medicine. Just because you get well generally whenever you take an allopathic medicine, you say that, well, it's the latest system of medicine, very scientific, it works. But your friend says that with me it doesn't work, I go to a homeopath or an Ayurveda person. Now, the person who is talking about allopathy doesn't know much about Ayurveda and homeopathy, he just has a prejudice. The one who is talking in favor of Ayurveda and homeopathy doesn't know much about the other system. Probably neither of them knows much about any system of medicine. They're extrapolating a little bit of their personal experience based on some sort of a vague faith and belief to everybody. They're generalizing it. Now that is a distortion. If they learnt a lot more about these different systems of medicine, what they would ultimately discover is that no system of medicine works irrespective of the natural powers of self-healing. There's infinite intelligence packed in the body, which is capable of healing us of any illness, firstly preventing illness, and if illness occurs, that infinite intelligence can by and large, in most of the cases, make us recover completely. Any system of medicine that works generally does by assisting, supplementing, supporting these natural mechanisms. That would be common to all systems of medicine. So that gives you a broad way of looking at things, an expanded view of things. Then you are not prejudiced. Then you are not for one against one. It is the habit of the intellect, that partial knowledge, that more than what we know, we are more keen to prove that I am right and you are wrong. Now that itself is a tendency which is there. And why is that there? Because both the emotional part of the being and the intellect, they revolve around the ego. That is a sense of meanness and myness. I am correct, you are wrong. My views are correct, this works with me and therefore this is what should work with you also. Now there's a me coming in there. Same applies to stress. I am under a lot of stress because my child has to take an entrance exam this year. Past class 12, now entrance exams are going on, I am under stress. Now, there are thousands of children having this type of entrance exams, and it happens every year. Every year I was not under stress. This year I am under stress because my child is appearing for that exam. So the my part comes in. So basically, all types of difficulties come in because of this ego around which our life is revolved. Well, a bit of ego bashing is fashionable in all spiritual talks, and that's what I am doing. But all the same, it also has a purpose which we will not go into, and that's why it has been planted there. But you can say it has a housekeeping function. No? It is what keeps the body and the mind geared towards some temporary goals which at least ensure survival and a reasonable comfort. That the ego is able to do. But then, so long as the life revolves around the ego, body and the mind, which is what we think is the totality of the person, these difficulties will be there because the body is imperfect, the mind is imperfect, and the ego which they are trying to pamper is also imperfect, has that exclusive focus on myself. Now, what is it that can expand this? What is that truth which Sri Aurobindo is talking about, that if mind is all, forget about truth? This truth is with a capital T. Now this is the total truth, which is the truth of the deeper truths of existence. And when I go to that, then the view changes. Because now I discover that, yes, I am a distinct individual, but then what is behind this individuality, behind the ego, behind the body and the mind, is something deeper and higher, and that is the divine. And they are only all these instruments are only manifesting a small part of that divinity. That applies not only to me, that applies to everybody else. That applies to all creation, even plants and animals. That applies also to inanimate objects like matter. Now, so I start seeing a certain oneness. So that view expands, it becomes wider. And therefore now things can be put into perspective. As a result of this, the ego may not disappear because I still remain an individual, but at least two things happen. The intensity of the ego goes down and it expands. Now let's look at both one by one. When your view is wider, then the feeling of being an individual and therefore being very important, that diminishes. I feel that I'm only one out of millions in the world, and I'm not that important, I'm not indispensable. I'll give you a little story. There was once a person visiting his friend, and he started boasting about how much property he had. I have one house in South Extension, one in Defense Colony, and one in Moti Bagh, and so on and so forth. Boasting. I have been clever and wise. As and when the things were cheap, I went on buying one after another, and now they're worth this much. Now, a young son of the host was listening to all this. He thought that this friend is boasting. So what he did was, he went and got a map of India and went and sat with them, and he told uncle, he told his father's friend, "Uncle, show me where your houses are in this map." He said, "Well, how can I show you? These are all houses in Delhi, and Delhi itself is just one little dot in this map. How can I show you all these houses in it?" Now, that is what happens. When your view broadens, then all the houses which were so important to him and was a result of such an important boost to his ego, the houses disappear. They can't be seen on that dot. Now, that is what happens when your view expands. So in the same way, I may feel that I'm doing such a wonderful job, I'm giving such a beautiful talk in the meditation hall, but then it's not that I'm indispensable. It takes just a little clot in the blood to travel from one of my veins and travel from there, lodge in the lungs or the heart and somewhere and collapsed. Gone. Now, that doesn't mean that the talks will come to an end. The yoga classes will come to end. There'll be better people like Ruchi to take over. So they are there. The divine has no shortage of instruments. When the old model has got outdated, we all keep getting new models in the factory. So in God's factory also, that's what is going on. So you're that's how your ego falls into perspective with this wider view. The second thing what happens is that expands to include more and more. And again, we can relate to it because to some extent it happens to most of us. We get married. Now, this is one person with whom I can share everything. Her joys and sorrows are my joys and sorrows. Both the partners feel so. And, now the ego circle, which was limited to one individual, has included two. Then come along the children. They become a part of the circle. To some extent, others may also become a part of the circle, others in the family, others in the neighborhood. But then the process does not have to stop there. Because all these are based basically on a sense of me-ness and mine-ness. My partner, my children, my parents, my siblings, my neighborhood, my workplace, my colleagues, my country. There's no need that it should stop here. It can expand further to include everybody, to include the universe. So the love tends to move from being confined to myself to the universe. So there's an expansion. Now, what is the result of this expansion? The result of this expansion is that now I start sensing a oneness with everybody, that oneness which is fundamental and oneness which is rooted in all of us coming from the same source, manifesting the same divinity. Our souls being the same, although the manifestation is partial, and that part which is manifested is different in each one of us. or at least it's manifested differently in each one of us, even if it is manifested as the body and the mind and the ego, it is manifested differently. So I start seeing a fundamental oneness. My manifestation is imperfect, another person's manifestation is also imperfect, but the two imperfections are different. That's all. And there's no reason to believe that my type of imperfection is less imperfect than somebody else's imperfection. That is never rational. Again, that's biased thinking that makes me feel that my imperfection is perhaps matters less, and it is less imperfect than somebody else's. It's something like, there's nothing like a perfect driver on the road, but still each driver thinks that the imperfections that I have are less important than other people's imperfection. And that's why they take pride in what they are good at. They try to hide what they are not good at. One person says that I'm a good driver because I follow all the rules of the road. Another says I'm a good driver because I drive slowly. And the third says that I'm a good driver because I not only know when to follow the rules, I also know when to break the rules. And the fourth one says, where any other driver can take you in 20 minutes, I can take you in 10. So every driver has his own way of proving that I am a better driver. And he's trying to sort of brush aside the imperfections that he has and highlighting the other person's imperfections indirectly. Now, all this happens because of this narrowness. But then once it expands, then it leads to a sense of oneness. This oneness translates into love, and love expresses itself by giving. Giving what we have to those who need it. And one is able to feel the other person's joys and sorrows, the way you feel with anyone with whom you feel close to. Anyone whom you feel close to, you feel that. And that's what that bhajan was, Gandhiji's favorite bhajan, which Basudhara sang a short while ago, Peed parai jaane re. That is, they feel the pain of the other person. So that is, you start feeling that. And that is what expands the ego. So ego goes a reduction because falls into perspective. Ego undergoes an expansion as a result of this higher and deeper knowledge. And the expansion means that the circle of love expands. I keep repeating this, but it bears repeating. That does not mean that I just say that, well, now I love all humanity. That is the easiest thing to do. What is difficult is to love a few real people. What universal love in practice means is that when I decide to love somebody, it will not be based on narrow considerations. That's all it means. Which means that the person who is in front of me, if that person needs something which I can give, I will give it out of love. So I'm still giving it to a real person. But that person who is in front of me does not have to be my partner or my child or my sibling or my countryman or belonging to the same religion, speaking to the same language. He doesn't have to have any of these things in common to qualify for my love. That is what universal love means. Doesn't mean that it is just in general I love all humanity. It doesn't mean that. Still for real people, but the criteria for deciding to love somebody have changed. They are no longer dependent upon any narrow, well-defined, objective criteria. Now the fact is that here is somebody available whom I can give something which I have, and that is what this person needs. That complementary situation is all that is required for giving. So when I do that, then what is the result of this? The result is that I start becoming a happier person. Why? Because a lot of stress is because of this narrowness. Let's take sort of some of the commonest, one of the commonest reasons for unhappiness, and that is interpersonal relationships. Now, interpersonal relationships lead to this stress, lead to worrying, or worry and anxiety about the other person, be it whatever, but so it's basically about me and a few other individuals. Now, why that happens is because we talk about the negative thing, which is what is more common. In interpersonal relations, I do not like somebody, suppose. Now, when I do not like somebody, it is because I am again taking a narrow view of that person. I am concentrating on the imperfections of the person. I am forgetting about my own imperfections. I am harboring for long periods of time something that that person might have done even 5 years ago. Now, all these things can add to that feeling of bitterness, which actually is eating me up. But this wider view and higher and deeper knowledge, how does it make me feel? Well, this person is imperfect, but I am also imperfect. And what this person did was because of ignorance. I have also made similar mistakes out of ignorance. Ultimately, this person is also a manifestation of the divine. So I can love the divine in him. And because of whatever mistakes that person did, now I can genuinely forgive him, because I can take a more charitable view of this person and also take a more strict and objective view of my own limitations and imperfections. So I can forgive this person completely and genuinely. Now, forgiveness is a great virtue, and genuine forgiveness is not common. We forget quite often. We learn to live without thinking about the hurt all the time, but we have not actually genuinely forgiven. Genuine forgiveness means that out of love, you understand the person, and therefore you decide not to have any sense of negativity towards that person, any dislike for that person. Doesn't mean that you'll spend a lot of time with that person. Still, that may not happen, because there can be a divergence in your opinions, a divergence in your goals and aspirations in life. But because of that, you don't have to stop having any negative feelings towards that person. You know, the way it has been expressed is that you can't like everybody, but you can love everybody. You don't have to like everybody, but you can love everybody, because at the deepest level, we are all one. And that itself is enough to give you that sense of oneness. And that love, again, doesn't have to be expressed to everybody. It can be expressed only if that person is accessible. And secondly, if that person needs what you can give. If the person needs something else, then you can't give it because you don't have it. So that complementary situation and the accessibility of that person, that is what matters. And therefore, you can love everybody, still you can't express that love to everybody. Expressing it to a few is enough. And depending upon the stage in life and circumstances of life and the type of inclinations and temperament we have, the background that we have, this love may be expressed for large numbers, or it may be expressed only for one person. That is not important. The important thing is the motive, the spirit in which it is being done. For example, a woman who is taking care of one child with special needs does not need any other people in her life to express her love. She can spend all her life revolving around that one child, and she has no time and energy for anything else. But then that itself is enough for her to express her love, to get that joy of expressing that love, and to find a sense of fulfillment of purpose of life through that love. Because that is what love does for us. It's not that we are giving anything to anybody. That person is giving us an opportunity to express our love. And when we do that, when we make use of that opportunity, it is we who get the joy, we get the lasting mental peace, we get a sense of fulfillment, because it is fulfilling the purpose of our life. And when all that happens, health follows automatically. Because we saw that the mind and the body are closely related, and mind is mind over spirit in this matter. Now the mind is at peace, and therefore the body is also in good health. Of course, I am not discounting the physical factors altogether. They can help. Diet, exercise, adequate sleep, not smoking, not drinking, all those things are important. And we should do them as much as we can. But then we all make mistakes when it comes to physical factors for two reasons. One is ignorance. We don't know everything that is good for us in terms of physical factors. Even the world doesn't know everything that is good. The opinions about what is the best diet vary from place to place, time to time, and they keep changing even in modern science. So nobody in the world knows exactly what the best diet perhaps is. We have some clues, some ideas, but even of what is already known, we know only a small part. So it's ignorance. Another thing that makes it difficult to follow all physical factors is compulsions of life. Because say if you look at the Ayurvedic Dincharya, it is a Dincharya for early morning, during the day, in the evening, night, and so on. All types of, all periods of the day are covered in that Dincharya. And if you follow it 100%, you can spend all the time, all the 24 hours a day just taking good care of the body. It's possible. But then what use is that good body if it can't be put to any use? Which means that out of compulsions you do make, or say to give a more ordinary example, forget about Ayurvedic Dincharya, we all know we should go to bed early. But then a little late in the evening is the time when you can catch up with emails, you can catch up with phone calls, you can catch up with replying WhatsApp messages. If that is what your routine has become, and you find that there's no other time in the day when you can do it, then a little delay in sleeping may be okay. You're making a compromise very consciously, which means that we keep making compromises consciously when it comes to physical factors, either because of ignorance or because of compulsions of life or because of both. So we are all making compromises. To some extent we can get away with them if we are mentally at peace. That is all what I'm trying to drive home. So that is why what is common to these people, if we go back again to that early question, what is common to all these people who live a very long life is that they have lived a life of genuine love and compassion. And they have not, their love has not been narrow in its outlook that it is only for this person, that person who is related to me this way or that way. Because if they had done that, if it had been within a narrow confines, then they would not have been able to love that long. And if they had not been able to love that long, they wouldn't have lived that long. Why they would not have been able to love that long is because if a person lives to be 100, then much of his biological family is already dead and gone. Most of his friends are dead and gone. He is perhaps the lone exception who is still around. Then he would have felt that there's nobody whom I can love, nothing I can look forward to, nobody on whom I can shower my love, nobody for whom I can do anything, nobody with whom I feel related. So what is the point in living? The person would have died long back. What has kept him alive is that he has felt a sense of connection with anyone who happens to be in front of him, and that will always be there. There will always have some people around, and if he has that love and compassion, then he'll always be able to give something, even if he is not physically in a shape able to give. There's always something that the person will be able to give. You might have seen many old people, one of the things they keep doing is, well, they'll see a thing, they'll say, well, this can be good for this person. They'll keep it very carefully, and when that person appears, oh, I've kept this for you. Now, they also are sort of, that gives them a purpose in life. Doesn't take anything much more than that, not take much physical strength, but they are doing that. So everybody is expressing in a different way. But what is common to all of them is that they always had a few objects of love, and therefore something which they wanted to give them, to express that love, and that gave them a meaning in life, a purpose in life, something to look forward to. That is what is common to all these people who live that long. So, and what is the source of that? The source is that now the mind is not limited to pampering the ego. The ego itself has gone down. The ego has expanded, and the mind is now better illumined to the divine essence of the person, which is the soul. This reflects in the way the person works. Now the work is with a different motive, not as someone, I'm the only one who can do it, I can do it so well, if I don't do it, how will it happen, I'm indispensable. All those things are gone. At least I should be successful in my work, at least I should be recognized for my work, I should get some award and reward for my work. All that is gone because of the changed perspective. That makes this work much better in quality, and the person is not under the stress associated with the work. This reflects in the choices that the person makes. The choices are not being made on the basis of what feels good right here and now. It's not being made on the basis of some intellectual calculations of profit and loss. risk and benefit. It is being made at a higher level, seeing what is it that expresses my love, what is it that, what is the choice that will give me lasting mental peace, will leave me no trace of any guilt or recurrent uneasiness. That is the level at which the choices are being made. This person is now able to look at all the ups and downs of life differently. He doesn't look upon them as success and failure, joy and sorrow and so on. The person looks upon it as different conditions and circumstances in life which have all been given to me for fulfilling the purpose of life, which is spiritual growth. Because the fact is, we can grow through so-called good fortune. We can also through what is called misfortune. And all of us get both types of events and circumstances in life, and both are opportunities for spiritual growth that now, with this expanded view, becomes a way of looking at both, a dispassionate and a neutral way, or even a way full of gratitude for both success and failure, joy and sorrow. We accept both as a gift from the divine. We accept it what is called prasada buddhi. We accept it as prasad from the divine. So, as a result of this, and then the person is no longer looking upon life as something which is meant to satisfy all types of needs like physical comforts, emotional satisfaction, others behaving with me in this way or that way, the desire to control others, the desire to control my surroundings, the desire for name and fame. All those are gone. Now his motives are what the mother has called much higher and wider, generous and disinterested. And that motive is essentially looking beyond oneself. That is how it becomes higher. It's coming from a higher plane, a higher level of, a level higher than the mind. It is wider, expands more and more in that ego circle. It is generous because the circle of love has expanded. You are willing to give generously in that vast circle. And it is disinterested, which means you are not looking at personal interest. Which means when you forget yourself, you start actually getting everything. So therefore, it is not by making a resolution that I'll be happy from tomorrow onwards, I'll stop worrying. There's no switch for happiness and there is no switch for worry. Switch on the switch of happiness and switch off the switch of worrying. There are no such switches available. It's a process. And the process does not depend upon resolutions. It does not depend upon meditation either. I'm not saying meditation is useless. But if one decides to just expect everything from 20 minutes of meditation, one is expecting too much from too little. If one expects that that will fix everything and the rest of my life can remain completely unaltered, my way of looking at life and people can remain unaltered, my way of looking at events and circumstances of life can continue to be what it has always been, then forget about the meditation doing the job. The moment you come out of the meditation, perhaps even during the meditation, you will be not at peace. Forget about what will happen after the meditation. And that is why, people like Om Swami and, said it such emphatic words that if you expect meditation or what is called sometimes commonly in these days in modern life, affirmations, that's why he's all said, you can say all the nice affirmations in life, you can do all that, nothing will help. Nothing will help because so long as the focus remains individual-centered, if so long as the ego doesn't expand, which means the circle of love doesn't expand, so long as that doesn't happen, it will not happen. The book itself is kindness, kindness to others. Kindness, compassion, love, these are all interrelated things. One is related to the other. One can't happen without the other, but love remains a sort of a central factor. Somebody said, the 3 C's which basically are a part of spiritual life: connection. Connection to a higher source, a higher power that knows everything and can do everything, and connection with others because we are all a manifestation of that higher power with which we feel connected. So one is connection. The second is a sense of compassion. Because if we are connected, then you also feel compassionate because you sense that oneness. And the third is C is contribution. That is, compassion and connection become meaningless unless they are given an expression. And the expression is through what you are able to contribute. Contribute in light of this wider and deeper knowledge. So basically it translates into connection, compassion and contribution. So that is what gives us. So basically then what is the sequence? For many of us, you see, before we are very clear about this, the sequence is that I have learnt the mind-body connection and therefore I'll be happy, I'll love people, I'll be compassionate to people so that I can be healthy. So the focus is on health and I'm trying to see other things as a means to that health. We have to reverse the sequence. We live a life full of love and compassion and forget about what the outcome will be. We live as we are expected to live or as we should supposed to live. We live that way because that is the only way we can live. Joy and peace will follow as a byproduct, and as a byproduct of that joy and peace, good health will follow. The sequence has to be live well, live the way we should be living in view of that deeper knowledge. Peace will follow and then will come health. Not that I start with thinking about health and start doing the other things because it will give me good health. That sequence makes all the difference. So these people who have lived very long, they have not lived very long because they're all the time obsessed with themselves. They were free from this chronic self-absorption. I should be healthy, I should live long. They were not having that. They were just living the way it came naturally to them, living a life of love, full of love. And that is what kept them happy. Happiness was a byproduct. That's what made them healthy. That was a byproduct. That is integral wellness. Because integral means total. And totality of the person is not just the body and the mind or the ego which does the housekeeping job for the body and the mind. The totality is also, not also, in fact, totality includes fundamentally and at its root the divine essence, that is the soul. And the soul has a dynamic aspect, the psychic being, which helps us illumine these instruments, that is the body and the mind, with that light which will make us see, if not the total truth in one step, more of the truth, less ignorance, more truth. It's a process, and eventually, hopefully one day, the total truth, which is what the rishis have perceived. So that's why it's also important to start with faith, because we may not have a perception of that total truth, but at least we can have faith in those who have had this experience. So the first starting point, in fact, for a person who is essentially a mental creature would be to at least acknowledge that something beyond what I can know and feel exists. And for that I can get glimpses from what others, the rishis, have seen. And on the basis of that, use that knowledge which I get from the rishis as a working knowledge, try to organize my life around it. So knowledge leads to a practice of living that life. That practice generates experiences which will deepen that knowledge, because now some of that knowledge will start becoming more and more my own knowledge, my own experience. So as that happens, it becomes a self-perpetuating process. Theoretical knowledge leads to a practice, practice leads to practical knowledge as a result of experience, and this experience, since it has expanded the knowledge, this knowledge means more to me because now it's also my personal knowledge. This leads to further practice, more experience, more knowledge, and it goes on. So once the process has been set into motion, it becomes a self-perpetuating process. So it's a process, it's not an event, and the process can start with just faith, just acknowledgement of the fact that what think at the mental level is not all, there is something beyond it. And that is something we all have a dim awareness of, and therefore it's not very difficult to acknowledge, because we all have that sort of a dim awareness that yes, this is not all, there is something beyond it. That awareness we have, we just have to say that that awareness is not based on an error, it is not imaginary, it is not a figment of my thinking, it is the very experience of the rishis. I have faith in them. I have faith in what they have observed. I have with that total faith. Total faith means not doubting faith. One can have questions but not doubts. Without any doubts, total faith, and then we start with that. So these are some of the things which thought I'll talk about. And once we have total faith in that source within, we find that that is also the source without in all creation and also beyond all creation, and that is the divine. So all that is that divine, and that is the one which if we take refuge in, start seeing more and more of in everything around us, in everything that happens, that source itself will steer us through all the difficulties of life, steer us in such a way that life becomes joyful and meaningful. And once again I turn to Vasudhara's words about Sri Krishna, Paar lagane wala, paar dikhane wala. Paar lagane wala, that is the one that will eventually take us across across this difficult world, the Bhavasagar as it is called. That is what Paar lagane wala. But then the second part is even more perceptive, Paar dikhane wala. The fact that there is something beyond, वो दिखाने वाला भी वही है. So पार दिखाएगा भी वही. That will make us what will make us pursue that, and then वो पार लगाएगा भी वही. All our efforts will contribute a little bit, but ultimately it is the divine grace which will take us there. So पार लगाने वाला वही है ultimately. So पार दिखाने वाला, पार लगाने वाला.